Well, the beer flu's been running rampant the past couple of weeks, and everybody seems to be freaking out about toilet paper now. So my spring break got extended by 3 weeks, so I have a little extra time at home. So I figured, what better time than now to make a update video on my fleet? Anyway, guys, how's it going? Sorry I haven't been on YouTube. Unfortunately, we had another death in the family. A couple months after my maternal grandfather passed back in October, my paternal grandfather passed in January, kind of unexpectedly. Losing one grandparent is tough, but losing two of them within the span of a couple months is just brutal. So he was an avid fan of my YouTube channel, so I'm going to dedicate this video to him. He was a businessman and he loved to fish. So, Grandpop, this video goes out to you. So, I'm a senior in college right now. I'm scheduled to graduate this December, God willing. And that's kind of been my focus lately. I'm just focused on making it to the end and getting through and getting the job. I'm looking to get an internship this summer with a big ag corporation like John Deere or Case New Holland, since they're fairly local out in southeastern Pennsylvania, or another locally based ag company. So I'm still searching around. I've had a couple interviews, just, hoping for the best. So as a result, I'm actually, in addition to that, I'm also planning to, move out of here in the next couple of years, get married, and hopefully settle down somewhere with a nice big shop so I can work on all my tractors. But as a result, I've actually been winding down my lawn care business. At the max, I had 14 accounts that I handled each week. By myself, I should add. So, 14 accounts, for those of you guys who are in lawn care, may not seem like a lot, but when you're just one guy doing everything yourself, it can be a lot to handle. So, I'm winding down the lawn care business. It's just time to, get started with the next chapter in my life. And as a result, the X570 here is going to be basically retired from commercial mowing duty. It'll just be used for mowing my lawn here and my grandparents' lawn across the street. This machine has just under 500 hours, believe it or not, and I've gotten a lot of good use out of it. I've made a lot of money with it, and it's been for the most part, it's been a good, reliable machine for my mowing business when it was really going. Unfortunately, I have to take it back to the dealer to get more warranty work done. It's got 492 hours on the meter right now, so it's just about to use up the rest of the warranty. So I figured I'd take it back to the dealer and get a couple things repaired while I still have the warranty remaining. I pulled it out of hibernation yesterday. It had been sitting in the shed since December, and it's doing this. I checked the connections. I cleaned all the connections going to the starter. I did a voltage and an amperage test and determined that the starter or the solenoid is jamming up, like something inside is broken. So I'm just going to have the dealer take a look at that. And apparently over the winter it also developed a leak at the input seal for the swash plate where the forward reverse pedal linkage hooks up, or where it goes into the casing there on the side. It's leaking pretty badly, and I'm not really sure why. So I'm going to have the dealer replace that seal under warranty as well. Once I move out of here in the next couple of years, this tractor is actually going to stay here. This will be plenty of machine for what my dad plans to do. He can, someday down the road, if he wants to put in a garden, he can put a sleeve hitch on it or put a tiller behind it. And it's, it'll be a great lawnmower for him, and it'll be plenty of machine for what he needs. So the plan is to keep this one here. But these three tractors here are not going. They're staying with me no matter what. I don't have any plans to sell them. I'll show you the old 210 here, everybody's favorite. I haven't really used the 210 much these past couple months. Just I've been busy with school, of course, and we had a pretty mild winter. For the second year in a row, I actually didn't plow any snow. The last snowstorm I had to plow was that big blizzard we had back in March of 18. I haven't plowed any snow since then, so that's kind of disappointing. But like I said, we've had a mild winter, so I really haven't used the 210 much. I've just been wrenching on it here and there. I brought it up to school with me back in the fall semester and just tinkered with it in the shop in my spare time, like on the weekends. Just fixing a couple little odds and ends here and there. The engine mounting bolts actually came loose from all the vibration, so I tore into it, and I replaced all the bolts with grade 8 bolts and metal insert lock nuts, so I don't have to worry about them loosening up again. You may also notice it's now sporting the Vredestein V61 5-rib front tires. I'm not really sure why it took me 8 years to invest in a set of these tires, but I'm so glad I did. These are a known favorite for doing garden work, and I think they complement the True Powers on the rear very well. They weren't cheap, but I think they're worth every penny. They're made in Germany, and they're 6-ply, so they're basically bulletproof. And I've noticed, just from driving it around the yard here, it actually really improves the steering. It's much smoother and much easier. And I'm eager to see how they handle in the clay when we're out at plow day next month. The turf tires that were on it were, I didn't really have any issues with them, but I figured these would look a little bit better with the True Powers on the rear, and they would handle better too. Well worth the upgrade. I also swapped over my other set of True Power tires, the ones that I had on my 140 H3 and my 316 for plow day. These were new 2 years ago. I didn't have any problems with the other set of True Power tires that were on it. I just wanted to replace them with the newer set. While I was at it, I also swapped over one of my better looking sets of wheel weights that had slightly better paint. And like I said, I've just been fixing a lot of little odds and ends on it. The grill was a little bit dented, so I straightened it out and repainted it. And I also replaced the grill emblem with the correct emblem. The one I had on it was for the later tractors that said John Deere at the bottom. It's technically not correct for one of these 200 series, so I replaced it with the correct one. So it's a little touches like that really make the tractor stand out, So that's the deal with the 210 for now. I'm bringing it to plow day this year. It's just going to be used as a backup as usual. But I am eager to see how it handles with the V61 tires up front. Then I think it's time to talk about this tractor here. If you're friends with me on Facebook, or if you happen to see my post in the YouTube community tab a couple weeks ago, then you'll know about this tractor. I also had it at the Lebanon Valley Indoor Classic Tractor Expo back in February, about a month ago. So as many of you guys know, the 318s are my favorite garden tractor, and for a long time I planned to save up and find a nice original Survivor 318. My original plan was to buy one after college was over, but this deal was just too good to refuse, and since my grandfather's gone now, the 316 across the street doesn't get used too much anymore. It really just sits around most of the time. We'll go over there later, and I'll show you. I really just bought that tractor as kind of a stand-in, like a placeholder, until I bought a 318. And this 318 here popped up for sale on the Eastern Shore of Maryland about a month and a half ago. And a friend of mine was selling it, and I kind of knew the history on the tractor. And he made me a pretty good deal on it that I couldn't refuse. So back in February, Jimmy and I went down there and picked it up. This is a 1987 John Deere 318. It's got the P218 Onan engine, of course, and this tractor is, for the most part, original. It's definitely a survivor. It's only got not even 700 original hours, and for the record, that hour meter is original and it does work. I see a lot of these 300 and 400 series tractors getting listed for sale with replacement hour meters on them. If it has a quartz hour meter or any hour meter other than this style, it's not original, for the record. But this tractor has 681 original hours, as you can see, and it's lived a very easy life. I'm the fourth owner, and the tractor was originally sold in western Maryland, not far from the West Virginia line, and it spent the first few years of its life, I think the first 17 years of its life out there. Then the second owner purchased it in 2004. He had a little piece of property in eastern Maryland, and he actually bought it to restore it. He just bought it as a restoration project, but he never got around to it, and it just sat for most of the time that he had it. So he would, take it out and wrench on it a little bit here and there, and the tractor actually came with a folder full of receipts dating as far back as 2011, and he purchased all of the parts. Like, all the receipts came from the local Deere dealer down there, so I could tell he was very, particular about using OEM parts. He replaced little things like the fuel pickups and lines, the intake and exhaust manifold gaskets, and just some other little odds and ends here and there. So like I said, he bought it to restore it, but it just kind of sat around, and he only got to fixing a couple little things on it here and there. And then my buddy Cameron on the Eastern Shore bought it back in September, and he decided to sell it because he had 2 other 318s, and he had some other projects he wanted to get to. He included a 46-inch mower deck, which is actually sitting on my trailer right now, and I got a 54 4-way hydraulic blade. He also threw in a brand new set of True Power tires, which are, I mean, you could even see these things have had like no use on them. So that just made the deal even better. He even included a spare Onan B43E engine block, just for parts, which I definitely plan to use and take some parts off of in the future. And another little added bonus, this tractor happens to have the suspension seat, which was not available until '88. I don't have much experience with these suspension seats, but I've heard a lot of good things about them. So I'm kind of happy to have this. The suspension does need to be rebuilt, though, because the bushings are all wore out, as you can see. I'm not too worried about that right now. It's going to need a little bit of work. I have to give it my special treatment, I guess you want to call it. The starter is acting up like a lot of the P218 engines. I believe the mounts on the block are broken. So at some point I'm going to pull the engine out, clean it all up. I'm going to replace the starter and the oil pan with the ones from the B43E engine that I have sitting in my shed. And I'm just going to do some other things too, like I'm going to replace the firewall foam and the input seal on the hydro, and just the common, wear items, the things that need to be replaced. Other than that, I don't really plan to do too much to this tractor right now. Eventually it will be a plow day tractor and a mowing tractor, but for right now I'm just kind of, riding it around a little bit, putting some hours on it, letting it run since it sat for so long. So like I said, it's going to need a little bit of fine tuning here and there, but I'm very excited to have this thing. For the longest time, I wanted a nice original Survivor 318. Ever since I was little and rode around on my uncle's 318, I wanted one that I could keep. And I've had a couple 318s over the past few years, but none that were really to my liking. So I'm glad to finally own this one. And I really don't have any plans to sell it. Eventually, I do want to get a 3-point hitch for it and, get some other little accessories for it here and there. But for the most part, I plan to try and keep this as original as I can. I'll start it up for you guys here real quick. The starter's a little bit noisy because, like I said, the mounts on the block are broken. So I'm going to have to get to that pretty soon. But it runs good. And it pretty much always starts up that easily, too. Runs like a top. The engine's nice and clean. Doesn't really have any blow-by, from what I've noticed. I saw a little bit of an oil leak around the blow-by tube, the breather tube, but I think the filter element is just clogged, so I'm going to have to clean that out once I take the engine apart. But in the past month and a half that I've owned this tractor, I haven't even had the side panels or put off yet. How you see it is pretty much exactly how I bought it, aside from the seat, like I said. But it runs good. Doesn't blow any smoke or make any unusual noises. Now, being an 87 model, it has the plastic flyball spacer that was notorious for causing over-revving problems. So when I pull the engine out, I'm going to have to tear it apart and replace that with a steel one as well. This will be the third one that I've done. It's honestly not too hard to do. So I'm going to replace the flyball spacer and replace the oil pan and starter, and then just clean up the leaking blow-by tube and any other, clean up any other little issues I find with it, and it should be good to go. But like I said, this tractor's lived a very easy life, so it really shouldn't take a whole lot of work. So I'm very excited to have this thing. I've wanted a nice original 87 or early 88 model 318 for a while. And if you're wondering, I prefer the 87 to early 88 because they were the first year to have the P-Series engine, and they were the last year to have regular, enamel paint before they switched over to powder coat. So that's just a personal preference. And now I'll show you the current status of the 782 build. As you can see, I've got it all torn apart again. So basically, I designed this project to happen in 3 phases. Phase 1 was installing the Onan engine in the tractor, Phase 2 was installing power steering, and Phase 3 will be installing a rear PTO from a Super Cub, like a 982 or an 1872 or 2072. It's definitely a unique build. As far as I know, nobody's ever done one quite like this. I've seen a 782 diesel with a rear PTO retrofit, and I've seen a couple 782s with Onan engines, but I've never seen one with all three. I've seen some with power steering too, but like I said, I haven't seen any tractors with all three of those upgrades. I'm not most people aren't likely to swap to an Onan anyway, but I've had very good luck with them, and I know where to get parts and everything. And this one that I picked up here, which also came out of an 87 318, lived a very easy life and has been very well maintained, so it should be trouble-free for many more years. I just have it torn apart right now because the charging system was bad. I mentioned it in a previous video, but the stator behind the flywheel was no good, so the battery would just drain when it was sitting. So I tore it all apart. I replaced the stator, and I replaced a couple of the ignition system components like the crank trigger and the condenser, as you can see here, just so I don't have to worry about tearing the engine out again in the future if those parts were to go bad. This engine sat for 13 years before I got it, so I should have replaced all those parts last year when I had it apart the first time, but oh well, you live and learn. I also noticed last time I ran this tractor back in the fall that the intake manifold had developed a leak. These Onans are notorious for that because, as you can see here, the intake manifold is two halves riveted together. Actually, this manifold was evidently split and resealed by somebody because they replaced the rivets with machine screws. I'm nuts. But the Onans are notorious for leaking between the two halves of the intake manifold. That's why they surge. They call it the dreaded Onan surge. This one was surging and it was just running erratically, and adjusting the carburetor didn't make a difference. So I figured I'd tear the intake off of it, and at some point this week I'm going to split it apart, reseal it, and put it back together. I've been planning for some time to install power steering on this tractor. Not that there was anything wrong with the original steering setup, but my end goal is to make this as similar to a 318 as possible. I'd like to have a tractor that's basically the Cub Cadet competitor to the 318, because there was never a Cub Cadet model that was directly equivalent to a 318. And the 318 and the 782 are some of the most iconic garden tractors ever built from each company. So I'm doing everything I can to make this tractor basically like the equivalent to a 318. And all the parts I'm using are Cub Cadet parts except the Onan engine. Like I said, that came out of a 318. So I ended up buying all the parts I needed from Ray Weaver at Ray's IH Parts. He got me all the parts I needed off of an 1864, which included the Cyclops front axle, which is a little bit sturdier than the original 82 series axle that you see here. The original spindles on the 82 series aren't designed to accommodate a power steering cylinder and knuckle, so you have to swap to the Cyclops front axle, which uses the later style spindles with the knuckle to accommodate the power steering. So like I said, he included the Cyclops front axle, the power steering cylinder. The lines on the cylinder were both rotted, so I had to have the local hydraulic shop make some new hoses. He also included the 5-port power steering column from the 1864, as you can see here. I just kind of have it loosely mocked up inside the dash column right now. It's not complete yet. The one major challenge I've had with this is trying to make this steering column fit, because the 1862 and 1864 tractors had tilt steering, and the steering column had a CV joint installed in it to accommodate the tilt. But obviously the 82 series tractors aren't designed for tilt steering, so I had to do a little custom modification. So I ordered a custom steering shaft adapter from Woodward Racing Products to turn this into a straight shaft. I welded the coupler in place, and then I cut the original steering column, as you can see here. This section of the column here is from the original steering column on the tractor, and then I had the local exhaust shop just take a piece of exhaust pipe and flare the end out a little bit like this so it would fit over that base there, the base of the steering shaft, and then welded the two pieces together. Now I just have to get this all primed and painted and get it installed. I'm going to install it with some U-bolts. You can see here where it attaches with U-bolts. I couldn't just have the exhaust shop make it one single piece of pipe, because I didn't have a piece of pipe that was small enough to fit inside the column there. The only size pipe they had was too big to fit through that hole there. So I had to get a little creative with it. I've also been adding a lot of little touches to the tractor, like I added these very nice powder-coated footrests from Extreme Motorworks. The original rubber ones were peeling away, and I just didn't like the way they looked. I also installed them with stainless steel bolts to, kind of add a nice touch. And I purchased a heavy-duty drag link assembly from Extreme Motorworks. This is much more durable than what it originally had, and it uses Heim joints instead of ball joints. So that was a nice little addition there. And I installed everything with grade 8 bolts as well, just for good measure. You'll also notice that I am sporting V61s on the front of this tractor as well. And I finally got around to installing the Carlisle Super Lug tires that I bought last summer. I think they look awesome. I just like the look of Super Lugs on these Cubs for some reason. I think the True Powers look better on Deere tractors than Cubs. But I'm eager to see how these do at plow day. The plan is actually to have this tractor ready for plow day this year. This is going to be the main tractor, and then the 210 will be the backup. At some point down the road, I would also like to find a diesel Cub to complement the 782. I've run plenty of diesel garden tractors, but I've never actually owned one. So I'd like to find an 882 or a 1512 to go alongside the 782. I like the Cub diesels a little bit better because the parts are a little bit cheaper and more affordable, and they're not quite as easy to find as a 332 or a 430. And there's actually room to work on them when you open the hood, unlike on the Deeres. So, like I said, I would like to find an 882 or 1512. I think the 782 is a little bit lonely. It needs a partner. And I just have a sweet spot for the white and yellow 82 series tractors. So at some point I'll pick up a diesel Cub. I think it'll be nice to have 2 Cubs and 2 Deeres. And then to have all the attachments that I can interchange between them. So that's the plan. I'm not really looking to get the diesel Cub anytime soon, but if I find the right deal, who knows? Real quick, I'll just show you my little hoard of attachments back here. Like I said, I'm going to be moving out of here pretty soon, so I'm trying to get rid of all the stuff I don't use anymore. So some of the stuff back here is for sale. These are the old True Power tires off the 210. These are actually sold. And this is the A-frame adapter I bought for my 3-point hitch on the 782. That's also sold. I have my newer black Brindley plow that you can see there that I got with the 316. I actually decided to sell this one. It's only been used a handful of times, like 3 or 4 times. I had it behind the 316 last year at plow day. And if you remember, I actually hit a rock and bent the share. But I replaced it with a good share, so now it plows pretty good. Just had to dial it in. And it also comes with the Coulter wheel as well. I mean, you can tell this plow's had very little use. So I'm asking $175 for that. A brand new one will sell for about $350. So if anybody's interested, let me know. I can deliver to plow day. I'm also selling one of my sets of 50-pound wheel weights. These are actually not true John Deere wheel weights. They're just a replica. The casting numbers are different, and they have that hole drilled through the center, which was not done on the John Deere weights. But I mean, they look and function exactly the same. I'm asking $150 for those weights. So the plow and weights are up for grabs. If anybody's interested, I can deliver to plow day. This is another 46-inch deck. I picked this up last week for the 210. I actually ended up selling my 46-inch deck that I had bought back in 2013, the one that I had restored or repainted. I wanted a nice original-looking mower deck, and this one popped up on Craigslist, and I got a pretty good deal on this one as well. And then I turned around and sold my other deck, so I'd say it worked out. The guy that I bought this from was a small engine mechanic, so he sharpened the blades and cleaned it all up and put a new belt on it, so it's basically ready to go. And this is one of the nicest original Model 47 decks I've ever seen. It came off of an 85 tractor, I believe, by the serial number, 85 or 86, and it has the discharge chute, and it also has a mulch kit installed underneath, too, which is interesting. I can't say I've ever seen one on one of these older 46-inch decks before, so I'm eager to try mulching with this thing once the grass starts growing. It'll look good under the 210. Like I said, I didn't have any issues with my other 46-inch deck. I just wasn't too happy with the paint job that I had done to it. It was just an amateur paint job, and I wanted a nice original looking deck. So I'm excited to try mowing with this one. And now we'll just run across the street real quick. I'll show you what's going on with the 316. Lo and behold, the 316's all torn apart. Now that my grandfather is gone, this tractor really just sits around. I haven't really used it much. I mowed my lawn with it a couple times at the end of the last season just to give it something to do, but otherwise it's really been sitting. I bought this tractor as kind of a stand-in until I bought a 318, and now that my grandfather's gone and I have a 318, it's really not doing me any good sitting around here. So I decided to list it for sale, and the tractor actually sold last week. A gentleman from up in central Pennsylvania near where I go to school sent me a message on Facebook. He was very interested in the tractor. He wanted it for his collection, and he had seen my YouTube videos of it, and he said he would be honored to have it. So I figured it would be going to a good home. I didn't want to just list this tractor for sale online and never see it again. So I'm gonna, next time I go back up to school, I guess 3 weeks from now or whenever we end up going back, I'm gonna bring this tractor up with me and deliver it to his house. And he didn't really ask too many questions about it, but he seemed very eager to want the tractor. And I could tell he was going to take good care of it. So I figured it'd be good to let it go to him instead of just listing it online and not ever seeing it again or hearing from the new owner. I actually led my grandfather's funeral procession with this tractor as well. I posted some pictures of it before. So it was the last tractor he ever really owned or ever ran. I wanted to make sure it was a John Deere and not a Cup Cadet. So, and it made him happy. I mean, if you guys saw that video of him mowing with it, he was like a kid in a candy store. If you haven't seen that video, I highly encourage you to go check it out. He was just, he was having so much fun that day. It pains me to have to sell the tractor, but like I said, all it does is just sit around anymore. I just don't use it now that I have the 318. So I'm glad it'll be going to a good home. Right now I have it torn apart because the hydro relief valves on the pump were leaking. That's not unheard of with these old machines. What happens is the O-rings and the detents and the valves go bad over time, and then they start to leak down and lose pressure. I noticed when I was out mowing, the mower deck would gradually drop to the ground, and even at plow day last year, I'd notice as I got further down the row, the plow would dig deeper into the furrow. And I figured it was the relief valves leaking. So I sent them out to Mock Tech Direct out in Ohio to get rebuilt, and I'm just waiting to get those back right now, and then I'll get them put back in the tractor and get everything put back together. So just waiting on that for now, and then I have to fix a governor shaft leak. The brass bushing that threads into the block there and holds the governor shaft in place is leaking. Which is not unheard of with these Kohler engines. It only leaks when the engine runs, though, which is kind of interesting. So I got the part. I just have to find time to, tear it apart and fix that. And then I'll get the whole tractor back together and get it serviced and get it ready to deliver to its new owner. So that's basically what the fleet looks like right now. I'm excited to start making videos on the 318 and the 782 build, so you'll have that to look forward to. The 316 will be gone in the next couple weeks, and we'll start mowing grass here pretty soon. And plow day is only a month away, so if everything works out, I'm planning to bring the 782 and the 210 up, so that'll be a fun time as always. Hopefully we won't get rained out like we did last year. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for the continued support, especially with these past couple months. They've been pretty tough for me and my family. We've actually had 3 deaths in the family over these past few months. They say it comes in threes, so I've just needed something to take my mind off of things, and that's why I'm glad to have my YouTube channel, because it helps me. It gives me peace of mind, and it lets me talk about the things I'm interested in. So thanks for the continued support. I plan to make a lot more tractor videos and truck videos too, once I get more time. But for now, hang tight, and thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.